I'm Yulia, the voice of the podcast Love to Heal, a journey of self-discovery, healing, and spiritual growth.
Hello. Today, I'm continuing with the topic of men and women, energy exchange, part 2. In part 1 of Men and Women Energy Exchange, I talk about masculine and feminine energies and how their intrinsic differences so beautifully complement and complete each other. I explain where the shape of the heart, the symbol of love, originated. I share my understanding of love at the soul level, of why unions of true love receive the most divine energy, and how important it is to maintain in relationships the separate roles of men and women, givers and receivers respectively. Before I dive in, I want to tell you about one of many coincidences that occur in my life. Of course, I'm a believer that there are no coincidences, only signs of alignment. And similarly, in this case, it was a clear sign of alignment. The week that I was preparing the episode on Men and Women Part 1, I attended my meditation circle, and to my pleasant surprise, the focus of that week's meditation, led by my newfound friend and energy healer, was none other than duality, the masculine and feminine energies in each of us. What I learned during this meditation supported wonderfully what I had already recorded for my podcast and inspired me to explore this topic further. The meditation itself was really neat. We practiced picturing and feeling the sun in one hand and the moon in the other. The sun represents the masculine energy, the fierce, the strong, and dynamic nature. The moon represents the delicate, gentle, calming nature. The sun also represents a person's ego and motivations, while the moon governs our emotions. As I'm sure you can see, both solar and lunar qualities are present in all of us, and both need to be nurtured and given space to thrive. When these energies are balanced, we may experience greater harmony and fulfillment, while an imbalance may lead to more stress and friction in everyday life. If you feel like you may be in need of balancing your masculine and feminine energies, I recommend finding a meditation on YouTube specifically for this. I checked, and there are numerous ones out there, free of charge. Or you can do yoga. And there are videos on YouTube for this topic as well. But really, yoga in general naturally takes care of balancing your energies, especially Hatha yoga that includes breath work and also meditation. And now, I think it's time to delve deeper into today's topic. I mentioned in part 1 that it is the love union of a man and a woman that receives the most divine energy and allows for the most soul progression. But something very important to note here is that love in a relationship, in a marriage, is not all about hugs, kisses, flowers, and sex. The real union of two people is really grounds for the biggest test in life, which is, drumroll, unconditional love. In order for love to grow in the soul, we must face challenges, conflicts, and hardships. We must learn from them and thus evolve spiritually. It is only when we pass these tests from above with love that we can actually receive more divine energy, which brings with it the best in life: health, wealth, happiness. So, in a marriage, especially in a family with kids, it becomes very easy to test people for unconditional love. Let me explain. When the honeymoon period is over, when the novelty of sex wears off, When newborn babies cry through the night, leaving the parents exhausted, will love prevail? When one of the spouses loses a job, or the house burns down, or one of the two becomes terminally ill, will they continue to fight for each other? A very common test is actually infidelity, believe it or not. My spiritual teacher, Inna from Moscow, has told us, her students, numerous cases she has worked with where she could see on the subtle plane, energetically, what goes on when infidelity is forgiven. Of course, I don't wish for anyone to go through such an experience as infidelity, but in the event that you do or know someone who is going through such an experience, know the following. When, for example, a woman forgives her cheating husband, she receives a great amount of divine energy in return. Even if she decides to divorce her husband, this is her choice, right? But as long as she forgives him and holds no grudges or judgment, she will experience a tremendous surge in divine energy, which of course will not only aid her soul development, but also will provide for a myriad of blessings. You see, it's crucial to understand the following. Everything that happens to us, all the hardships in life, are merely lessons. And lessons are programs. So, when a friend betrays you, for example, it's not because the friend is a jerk. It's because you needed this lesson in your life. And if you pass the lesson with love, if you forgive and hold no grudge, you will be so happy. You will create a better future for yourself and your offspring, your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids. What's really amazing is that when a woman learns to forgive infidelity, for example, since I mentioned this earlier, the children of this woman will actually receive this karmic knowledge and will not need to pass through similar situations when they're in their adulthood. The mother sort of passes on her ability to forgive through her energy, her DNA, her mother's milk, everything that she gives to her children. Through that, she also gives to them this karmic lesson, this knowledge. So if the lesson is passed, her kids will not need to worry about a similar lesson in their adulthood. So every time you pass a lesson, you actually create a brighter future for your kids and grandkids and so on. If you follow this philosophy, then every single hardship you come across will be nothing more than an opportunity to grow love in the soul and share it with your loved ones. Let me tell you just a little bit more about why lessons are just programs aimed at purifying our souls. You might have heard in my podcast or elsewhere that life is like a play. We are actors, and our director, God, gives us roles to play. Well, when someone steals your wallet, for instance, it's not that the thief is a terrible person. It's that he was assigned the role of a thief. You see, once you start to see people as actors in this play called life, you will stop taking everything so personally and close to heart. Again, my teacher sees these things energetically. Many people do. And she explains that oftentimes when people commit such acts as infidelity or theft or other forms of aggression, they are being sort of hypnotized, if you will. They act not of their own accord. And when they realize what they've done, oftentimes they can't believe it themselves. They can't believe that they committed this crime or aggression. This is especially true for the most absurd, illogical situations. Just think about it. I know in my life I've had situations that were literally absurd. They just could not be explained rationally. Especially in times like this is exactly what's going on. It is a program working to purify your soul and test you. And then if you pass that test with love, your soul will progress. It will develop. You will not get sick. You will experience happiness, joy, blessings will come your way. So now, circling back to the union of two different energies, personalities, opposing forces. To reiterate, our differences between men and women are essential for our completeness, but also necessary for soul progression. Let's focus on family for a moment here. I think Sergei Lazarev's point of view is very relevant here. If you have been listening to my podcast, I mention Sergei Lazarev a lot. He is a philosopher, an energy healer, an author. So I turn to his research almost daily and find his literature very inspiring and pertinent. He explains that a family is a living organism that either develops or degrades and dies. The main law of development is the law of unity and struggle of opposites. A husband and wife are opposites. They have different opinions, each one striving for the realization of their own desires. At the same time, both must take into consideration the point of view of the other half and adapt to each other. In order to live together and interact with each other, spouses must strengthen their unity, which is the foundation of development. Unity is strengthened and developed through sincerity, caring for each other, compassion, as well as through joint affairs and activities. In order for a family to develop, each of the spouses must put in the work and grow. The more a person develops, trying to improve his character traits, striving to become more loving, more flexible, more sincere, the more love he or she will have in the soul, and the stronger the family will become. It is in a family that a person can learn how to care for another, how to be patient, understanding, forgiving. Also, how to sacrifice. I have a whole episode on the topic of sacrifice, by the way, and why it is so favorable for soul progression. I won't go into the most important aspect of the foundation of a family because this is not the focus of the episode, but I will briefly mention it. In order to have a solid foundation for a family, God must be in the center. God must be the priority, be above all else. And then it becomes easy to fulfill the commandments and learn to conflict and face hardships as a family. But let's get back to relationships. In part 1 of this topic, I talked about men following in the woman's steps, whether it be towards spiritual development or away from it. However, this may not always be the case. As Sergei Lazarev notes, a man works as an antenna, a woman as a transmitter. The masculine principle is oriented towards the subtle planes, towards the future. In this aspiration, it is the information component that prevails. In a woman, on the other hand, it is the energetic, sensual, material aspect that is more pronounced. Remember, men are naturally more spiritual, while women are more earthly. If a man has an incorrect worldview, a distorted scale of values, then his woman, using the information emitted from the man, realizes it in energy and voluntarily or involuntarily, begins to destroy the man as a supplier of low-quality information. And by destroying, I mean disease, misfortunes, or death. As the popular saying goes, well, at least for me as a dancer, it takes two to tango. I think I've made it clear that men and women are vastly different, and it is the differences that, on the one hand, make two halves a whole, but on the other hand, provide opportunity for conflict from which both parties can learn and grow. For example, if a man tried to fix something in the house and failed, the woman should not humiliate him, should not accuse or reproach him. It's important for the woman to evoke positive emotions in her husband, to praise him, care for him, be gentle, understanding, and flexible. This will give the man wings. He won't feel less of a man when he messes up in business or elsewhere. After all, we all make mistakes. When a woman lets the man feel like a real man, he becomes unstoppable. But it is healthy to also keep the man on his toes. He should feel like he could lose her because of her internal independence, courage, beauty, and wit. The woman should give in on the small things, but be adamant on the main thing. In the previous episode on this topic, I also mentioned that the woman is considered to be the neck and the man the head. Because really, it is the woman making the big decisions, but she makes it look like it is the man who is in charge. This subtlety, I feel, is very important and works wonderfully for relationships. Now, what about men? They're not off the hook either. A man needs to learn to conquer his woman daily, to provide for her, to protect her, making her feel safe as if behind a rock wall. I don't know if we say it like this in English, but in Russian, we do say it like this, that as a woman, I'm behind my man like behind a rock wall. So I feel very safe and secure. After all, God made men naturally stronger, bigger, and less emotional, so they can provide a safe space for creating a family. Men instinctively feel the need to go out to work, to bring money into the household, to simply be providers. Remember yin and yang? They are the sun, the men are the sun, the active energy, the rational planning type, while women are yin, the receivers, the keepers of harmony, rest, intuition, the moon with its mood swings. Haha. The creativity and knowledge. I don't care what today's society is fighting for. And I don't agree with the continuous fight for equality between sexes because it's not leading us anywhere good. The masculine and feminine sexes never were and never will be equal in the sense that they are each in a category of their own. They're vastly different and cannot and should not be forced to perform or behave in the same fashion. What I'm about to tell you is what my spiritual teacher sees energetically, on the subtle plane. What we are experiencing today is not the norm. It's a recent phenomenon that is causing many, many women to suffer from breast cancer, to never find love, to miss out on having kids, and so much more. It's really tragic what this fight for equality between sexes has brought about. Kids that are in need of mothers are brought up in daycares because so many mothers are career-oriented. Many women are not happy working the 9-to-5 job in offices because women are the creative force designed to follow their soul's calling. Just because a woman makes a ton of money doesn't mean she's genuinely happy. Money is the natural motivation for men. This is how they find themselves and their calling. Money should not be the goal for women. When after college a young couple gets married, The norm would be for the man to go to work while the woman stays home to create an atmosphere of love and peace. A home where children can happily grow up and the parents can share many wonderful, happy moments. Where there is always a fresh meal getting prepared and the living space is inviting and beautiful. In contrast, what we often see today is two hardworking, tired parents rushing to pick up their kids from some daycare to feed them some frozen meals and put them to bed. I do want to mention, too, that there are many countries in the world that are way ahead of the United States in this aspect. They offer a year or more of paid maternity leave for new parents, and paternity leave too. I sincerely wish the US would catch up. Energetically speaking, the man is designed to create in the external sphere of activity, while the woman creates in the internal sphere. At least this is true for new families. Of course, when the kids get older, this can change to some extent. But in the beginning phases of a union between man and woman, the healthy norm is what I just mentioned. And again, energetically, this is because men and women bring two types of energy to the relationship: the active and the passive, the external and the internal. And remember how opposites attract? That's what makes two halves a whole. This is why opposites attract. If you try to put two of the same together, it ain't gonna work. If both parties decide to get out and focus on their careers, pushing aside the idea of kids after marriage, then energetically they no longer complement each other, but rather they become rivals. Moreover, when a woman takes on the role of a man by working like a bull, I don't know if this is an expression in English either, but working really hard, by being super independent and taking everything into her own hands, she literally strips her husband of his creative energy, leaving him weak and in the role of a woman. Meanwhile, she suffers and gets ill because she has taken on too much. And also she has taken a role that she's not naturally designed to take on. So the norm for a couple is to divide the necessary jobs and responsibilities according to human nature and energy settings. The man is the provider, the money getter. The woman is the receiver, the creative force, the family keeper. This is important, especially for families with young children, as I said. This way, you don't have two stressed out, exhausted parents that can't spend quality time with their kids. If the man comes home and needs to de-stress, the woman, being the receiver, can accept his low vibrating energy and transform it into calm, care, and love. When a stressed out man comes home to an equally stressed out wife, who knows what the outcome is when two low vibrating energies clash, each needing the other to talk to unload their worries and stresses on, while little kids run around seeking attention. It's a lot. Honestly, I don't know how most people do it in today's world. I really don't know. Of course, when the kids are grown in school, for example, for most of the day, and they don't need as much hands-on care, then yes, the woman can and should get back to or start her career. But, there's always a but. Ideally, the woman should work in a field that she truly enjoys. The choice should not be driven by money. She will flourish in all aspects if she follows her true calling, that which warms her heart and gives her wings. Again, energetically speaking, when a man works to provide for his family, he actually attains enough divine energy to support his wife in her future endeavors. So when she's ready to get back to the workforce to do that which she truly loves, he will be supportive of her. And if she decides to, say, open her own business, there will be either enough funds for it already, or the right opportunity will come along, or her husband will have already established connections that will help her realize her dream. And everything will magically work out. Well, so we think. It's not really magic. Our spiritual teachers, our spiritual guides, God is always leading us in the correct direction. The way the subtle plane works is truly amazing. Our spirit guides, they lead us to the best outcome if and only if we don't get in the way. If we don't fight the current, but rather go with the flow. And yes, I am aware that not everyone has the ability to, say, not work, to stay home with the kids, etc. I understand that some women become widows and single mothers, but that is not the norm. So, to recap, it is normal and right for a man to make money his goal. This is what motivates him to succeed and provide for his family. But it is not normal nor correct for a woman to make money her goal. This will destroy her. Rich, independent, career-oriented women can rarely be genuinely happy. It can be difficult to find love, to create a family, and feel at peace and fulfilled. If, of course, the woman does what her soul desires, she can be successful and rich. But money must not be the end goal or the driving force. Interestingly enough, women should also not be housewives forever. Once they're done raising kids, it's actually crucial to find their calling, because if they don't, to the subtle plane, to the divine energy, to God, this is literally a waste of talent that could make the world a better place. And this lack of action is even punishable by illness, sometimes divorce, or something else that leads to unhappiness. So in order to constantly receive divine energy, we must be active, creating, giving, living life to the fullest. And a housewife in an empty nest, for example, doesn't really contribute to society. So she needs to find ways to give away energy, to make room for new energy, so that the cycle doesn't stop. If the family, let's say, is super rich and the woman doesn't need to work, okay, she could go and volunteer her time, her money, her talent, whatever it is that she can contribute to society. That is very important, to keep receiving that divine energy, to do something that we feel good about and feel fulfilled. But it has to be from the heart. Another interesting point I touched on in part 1 is how every couple's goal is to join chakras, to eventually become literally one unit. Most relationships start at the bottom chakras, when people fall in love with their bodies. If that goes well and they stay together long enough to create a family, they might join at the next couple chakras, which are a bridge to the soul level of relationships. Connecting at chakras 5 and up is pretty much reserved for those couples that continue to love each other till the end of their days, when they can't live without each other because they have become literally inseparable energetically. And again, I think I talked about this last time, but you know how some older couples that have been together for 50, 60 years, when one passes away, the other one passes away soon after. This is because they literally can't live without each other. But as we know, especially in today's society, this is becoming more and more rare. Unfortunately, marriage and vows don't mean squat anymore, and as soon as couples start to go through hardship and conflict, they throw away what they've built together in search of something new that might make them happy. You see, if people understood from the very beginning, if we were educated on what marriage is and what it's for, perhaps there wouldn't be so many divorces. Marriage in religion is a sacred union commanded by God. In Judaism, marriage is a way for two people to merge into a single soul. The husband is considered incomplete if he is not married, because his soul is only part of a larger whole. Furthermore, the existence of God as a silent partner in Jewish marriage endows a relationship with sanctity and solemn commitment. This is similar to what Christians believe, and Muslims too. The union of man and woman is the fastest way to connect to God and grow spiritually, while reaping benefits of divine energy that is granted in access to loving unions. It is really very unfortunate that religion gets such a bad rep today because there's so much wisdom in the Bible. Marriage is not about selfish desires like money and status. It's not about sexual attraction. It's about choosing a companion for life that will love you, appreciate you, support you, and understand you. Lastly, although this topic is still far from over, I'll mention Tantra to tie all this back to energy exchange. The word Tantra refers specifically to a series of esoteric Hindu books that describe certain sexual rituals, disciplines, and meditations. These ancient Indian books, over 2,000 years old, were written in the form of a dialogue between the Hindu god Shiva, the penetrating power of focused energy, and his consort Shakti, who represents the female creative force. Ancient Tantra is a spiritual system in which sexual love is a sacrament. It is expansion of consciousness, leading us to connect to our real divine self. Pleasure, power, connection, awakening, and even personal growth and healing happen because of the movement of energy. Might I add, divine energy. So in Tantra practice, you not only recognize the importance of energy, you learn to intentionally move it and exchange it. And that kind of tantric energy exchange awakens, heals, connects, and brings immeasurable pleasure to the parties involved. In short, tantric techniques vary in every culture, but they mostly aim to help you unobstruct your energy centers. Many traditions use chakra-based practices that identify blockages and align your spiritual and physical bodies. Sexual energy, also known as life force, also known as divine energy, makes up all life. One can practice various rituals and techniques to raise this energy, but God gives the most energy to couples that love each other, that are deeply connected with each other. And so, since from the beginning of time, men and women were designed differently energetically, were designed to grow and evolve spiritually as a couple, tradition makes more sense than the phenomenon we are seeing today, where women take on men's roles, exuding masculine energy, which leads to what? Divorce, men dying younger than women suffering from diseases like cancer and other illnesses because they're taking on too much onto themselves. And if you add kids to the mix, we've got kids feeling more anxious and lost than ever. So, here's to women being women and letting men be men. Let's celebrate our innate differences and apply them to soul development with our other half. And one more thing. If we want to fight for women's rights, can we fight for at least a year of paid maternity leave and maybe some paternity leave as other developed countries do? because they actually understand that family takes precedence over anything in society, and that the woman should have the right to be with her newborn children, at least for the first year of their lives, and not have to worry about losing her position at work if she decides to come back. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I will leave you today with A Blessing for a Marriage by poet and minister James Dillet Freeman. Enjoy, and until next time. Blessings for a Marriage. May your marriage bring you all the exquisite excitements a marriage should bring. And may life grant you also patience, tolerance, and understanding. May you always need one another, not so much to fill your emptiness as to help you know your fullness. A mountain needs a valley to be complete. The valley does not make the mountain less, but more. And the valley is more a valley because it has a mountain towering over it. So let it be with you and you. May you need one another, but not out of weakness. May you want one another, but not out of lack. May you entice one another, but not compel one another. May you embrace one another, but not out-encircle one another. May you succeed in all important ways with one another, and not fail in little graces. May you look for things to praise, often say, "I love you," and take no notice of small faults. If you have quarrels that push you apart, may both of you hope to have good sense enough to take the first step back. May you enter into the mystery which is the awareness of one another's presence, no more physical than spiritual, warm and near when you are side by side, and warm and near when you are in separate rooms or even distant cities. May you have happiness, and may you find it making one another happy. May you have love, and may you find it loving one another.